Welcome back to the IE427 garage. Today we are working on more Coyote Gen 3 control pack wiring. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are in the midst of all of the integration between the Ron Francis harness and the Ford Coyote Gen 3 control pack wiring. So we're doing a little bit of both, but in the end, it's all geared towards getting this car first started in probably the next 3 weeks. So I'm going to start over here on the driver's side of the car. I just finished up tying in a bunch of gauge wiring and other little stuff for the engine. I'm trying to keep track of everything and do it kind of methodically so I don't lose place. But I found that I already had done some of this previously, and so I had to take a few steps back and then recount my steps to figure what I did before. The speed head gauge for the oil pressure has changed, and it used to be a 2-wire connector and now it's a 3-wire connector, and our Ron Francis harness only has the provision for the 2-wire. So what I did was I used the cooling fan circuit that grounds the relay in our dash or sensor harness, and I lengthened it, and we're going to use this green wire for that 3rd wire on the oil pressure sensor. Now we also have an oil temperature sensor that's on the other side of the engine, but I'm going to run everything down on this side. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to run everything down through here towards both the coolant temperature sensor and the oil pressure sensor, and then I'm going to go down underneath the engine and across the T of the oil pan over to the other side where our temperature sensor for the oil is. So right now I've got that routed through here. What I also did is I pulled the choke wire out of the engine gauge harness, and I replaced it with the coil tack purple wire, because this wire here has to tie into one of the coil packs on the engine. And so I think we're going to pick, I think this is going to be the back cylinder's number 8. So we're going to tie it into that cylinder, and then we're going to have to remember when we program the gauge that it is set at a half cycle, and that will allow it to work with the coil on plug or the coil pack for the Gen 3 Coyote. I did go ahead, since I pulled the choke wire out of that harness, I did intercept it before that connector, and then I went ahead and I soldered on the wire that it basically went into that harness, and I soldered it onto the wire that came out of the harness in the engine bay. The reason I did that is because I figured we could use that circuit. We could probably use that circuit for an underdash USB connector or something like that that is going to need key-on power to run it. And I think that circuit is rated at 10 amps. Don't hold me to it. I'm not looking at the Ron Francis wiring harness diagram right now, but I think that's what it is. The other thing that I brought down that I haven't got installed yet, which I'll probably do tomorrow, is the ignition key switch. I'll probably just put that in line for now, and then we'll use that to fire the engine up when we get to that point. I don't think we're going to have our dash in for first start, but we can tie the blue driver, which is an OBD2 like dongle You basically plug that into the port, and then it reports to your phone or your tablet, and you can get all the gauge readouts that the engine PCM reads. So it'll read tach, it'll read water temperature, oil pressure, all that kind of stuff that the engine sees can be read on the tablet. As well, over on this side of the car, I've made a panel for the headlight switch. This is going to be our high-low beam right here, and this will be our hazard light switch. The reason I put this right over the top of the headlight switch is because it just makes sense. They're almost in tandem with one another. Now, the high-low is just pushed over a little bit. If you look when this panel's not here, there is a piece of the chassis right here, and so the switch will only go so close, and both of these are about as close as they can be, and I wanted to leave as much room as I could for our third switch, which is our hazard light switch. So I think on this side of the car we pretty well have everything kind of squared away. Oh, I did run our grounds for the Ford control pack right here, and also our cooling fan. Remember, I ran a separate number 10 ground for our cooling fan. So those are tied into our ground stud. It's just loose right now, but we've got other grounds that are going to tie into there. But I wanted to get those landed. I wanted to get them cut, and I wanted to get the eyelets put on them before I got too far. And then I would have to fish it all, through a maze of other wiring. Now, what I did do on all of these ground circuits, just like I did for the inertia switch, I just tie wrapped it about every 4 inches or so. I just use my 4 fingers here as my gauge for distance on all of the tie wraps. And so those are in. And I've got the heater control wires brought here through the Firewall extension. So what I did is I took one of the 1.25 grommets. I went ahead, drilled a hole, put the grommet in, and then I started fishing all of our associated wires through here. So those are those 2 grounds. I did end up putting split loom on both of those grounds because it just looked neater in the engine bay. And even though this one here for the cooling fan isn't going to be seen because it's kind of tucked in behind the ECU, I figured while I was doing one, I might as well just do both. Since we're standing here, I've got the control wires for our vacuum solenoid. I've got them started. I'm short some loom for this, which I'm hoping I'm going to pick up tomorrow. If any of you guys want a tip on where to buy that split loom, the cheapest, it's going to be Harbor Freight. You really can't beat the price, and it's just split loom. So I don't think there's a whole big difference in the quality of split loom versus whether you buy it at the home center or whether you buy it at Harbor Freight. But it's about $1 cheaper total for, I think it's, depending on what size it is, it's either sold in 6, 8, or 10 foot lengths. But it's just cheaper there. So I'm going to probably go there tomorrow, pick some of that up, and then I'll loom this back and then through that grommet. And then the only thing I'll have left to go through that grommet will be the control wires for our wiper motor. And I still have to go upstairs and find that stuff and bring that down. So I think that gets us pretty much caught up on the Coyote wiring. I'll try to remember tomorrow when I come out here to raise the lift up, because I did get a weather pack connector terminated and landed for the cooling fan. I've got it all strapped in place, and so it's nice and tidy. I'm waiting to put this last strap on here because I figured I could do the headlight harness and the cooling fan harness with one rivet, but multiple cushion clips. So I figured that would be neater. So I'll plan on doing that when I do the headlights. So I will catch up with all of you tomorrow night. All right, it's been a hectic couple of days, so I'm hoping that I am picking up where I left off. Still working on getting all of the wiring straightened away. trying to get all the stuff from basically the firewall forward of the engine taken care of in the 25th anniversary car. So I want to get everything through the firewall that needs to come through the firewall, either coming from the dash out or from the engine in. I have all the sensor wires for the speed HUD gauges through the dash and into the engine compartment, and just kind of routed, I don't know if you can see that right here, just kind of routed up in here with the rest of the wiring that's going to go towards the front of the car. And eventually we'll get all this kind of wrapped together. I may grab some larger split loom and put everything in a single large split loom just to neaten things up. But for now, I've just got it up here. And then it comes down, and it comes down towards the alternator, where we're going to pick up the sensor for the coolant temperature. We're going to pick up the sensor for the oil pressure, and then we're going to cut over to the other side of the engine and pick up the oil temperature. I think I pointed this out before. We've got the purple wire here for the tack. I sent it through that same harness out into the engine compartment. This has to tie onto the number 8 cylinder. So this part of it is done. On the other side of the car, what I've been working on is getting all of the wires that have to come through this side of the car in, basically into the cockpit of the car. So up here we've got some split loom on the 2 wires that are going to feed our vacuum switch that is going to operate our vacuum bellows for our 4-way valve. And the reason I've just got a tie wrap in here for now is because this bracket is going to have to come off when we send the car to Miller for body and paint, and this piece is going to have to come off so that we can send it in to have it powder coated. So that's why I'm not getting too carried away with strapping everything on here, because I'm going to have to come back and address that later anyway. So that wire comes up here, and then it joins with a split loom that has the 5 wires for the wiper motor. So you can see here I've got the wiper motor. The connector is like right here. You guys can see that. I've got it all tied in. I've tested the high and the low speed, but I don't want to drag the switch out of the box yet and test the park feature. So I know that the motor actually works. So even if the park feature doesn't work on it, I don't really care, because we didn't used to have the park feature. You just had to turn off the switch when it got to the park spot on the windshield. So I haven't had a whole lot of luck with using the park feature on these in the past. So maybe the new switch is the magic bullet that's going to make everything perfect. I don't know. So those join up here, and then they go through the firewall extension and into the cockpit of the car. Now I'm going to take these and I'm going to route these down and then run these across, and probably put a large cushion clip in here just to keep all those wires kind of contained. And if they ever have to come out, it'll just be a matter of threading them back out through the cushion clips. I'm probably only going to put 2 of them, maybe one here and one down there, just to neaten everything up over here. Now you can see this area with all this control pack wire became just a mess of wires. But there's really no other place to put these short of cutting and shortening that entire wire harness. And I'm not up for that. I don't think the owner's up for it. So we're going to do what we can to get all this stuff kind of pulled back out of the way and tie wrapped together and, cushion clipped and whatever we have to do in order to get the wires neatened up. And they're going to be back here and hidden from view anyway. The one thing that I'm looking at right now is access that we're going to have to get the windshield put in. I've never had this much stuff on one car, meaning every box on the factory 5 order list was checked. Heater, wipers, Coyote control pack, you name it, it's on this car. And that's going to make trying to get to these windshield bolts just a complete and total nightmare. Now remember, we'll still have access in through here, through the side vent, when we first put the body on the car. But getting around in here to get to the nuts that go on those bolts is going to be fun. So Hopefully I will have had a good night's sleep the day we put the windshield in, and a low stress week, because I'm not looking forward to that. I think that's where I'm going to leave off on this video. I think we'll catch back up on all of the sensors on the next video. So I'll be putting all of the connectors, connectors that are provided by Speed Hut, on the ends of all the wires and connecting those to all of the sending units underneath the dash. All the Ford stuff is already reattached because it was just a matter of moving those or you know, putting T's in and stuff like that, so that the Speed Hut gauges could tie in and monitor the stuff as well. So that shouldn't really be an issue. But yeah, the wiring on this is very time consuming because there's just so much of it. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it tonight. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this one. I want to thank you all for watching. We appreciate every view. If you're enjoying the content here, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that kind of stuff, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.